Hey man, what's gotten wrong with you? Hey man, what's gotten into you? What's wrong? Don't you want to watch my D&D race tier list? Since I was a child, I've been obsessed with D&D. And now it's time to make the quintessential D&D race tier list. It's based on nothing but my own enjoyment of player classes and race combinations and all that. And we'll start off with Leonin D. That's too furry for me. Never really been too interested in that. I think it's a very specific, what is it, like campaign thing? Like based on Greek mythology and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really see myself ever playing a Leonin. Maybe a cat person kind of guy, but not a full-on lion. Oh my god, are we scraping snow outside? I guess we are. Satyr. Yeah, I don't know if... I feel like I enjoy this as a race in D&D, but I'm not sure if I would ever play one. I'll put that as a B because I quite enjoy like forest creature, forest people kind of things, but maybe something different from a satyr. But if I see a satyr, I'm not gonna be against it. If I see a satyr, I'm gonna be like, hell yeah, another forest creature. I'm not gonna say, oh, it's a satyr, therefore it's evil. Arakocra? I'm not really into bird people. Sorry. Genasi. I would much rather play as something that has, you know, inherited elemental powers but looks more human. I think putting all those like elemental features to it is a bit too much. You know, I enjoy like Avatar: The Last Airbender, that kind of person. If I could play a Genasi like that, like an airbender, like a firebender actually, like a firebender Genasi, purely cosmetically. I'll put it. I don't like them purely cosmetically. I'll put them at a C, I think. Yeah, that feels about right. Goliath. I like the idea of a strong type character race who's like big brutish, but I'm not sure I like the Goliath because they all kind of seem the same to me. They have like the same look. They can't grow here. They can't grow hair. I do enjoy a big brutish kind of guy, but where's the variety in that, you know? Where's the variety? Seymour. That's more of an NPC kind of thing, you know? We're still there of like, it's not something I would play. It's maybe something I could enjoy seeing like people in my party playing, but it's not quite something where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm dying to play an Aasimar. Bugbear is kind of a similar thing where it's like, if you have orcs in D&D, is there a big difference between playing that and a bugbear? But it's not terrible, you know? It's not so bad where I'm like, oh, I hate the bugbears or whatever. I'll maybe put that ahead of the Aasimar, though. Firbolg. So here's like a character trope that I enjoy a lot. The big giant who has a heart of gold. I'll put that an A, and it's a forest creature too, which is really nice. I do enjoy forest people, like I've stated before, and I've never played a Firbolg, but I definitely think I could play one, and I think I would have a lot of fun doing it. Goblin, oof, Goblin might in fact be an S tier. I've never played a Goblin, but I definitely enjoy Goblin characters, Goblin players, Goblin NPCs, all that stuff. I could definitely imagine myself playing a Goblin. Maybe a nice, friendly Goblin, maybe an evil one. There's a lot of variety with them, and I definitely enjoy tiny races. We'll see that. It's about a spoiler? I don't know. Hobgoblin. I mean, that's a similar thing with the Bugbear, you know? I don't know, I'll put them ahead of... Would I put them ahead of Bugbear? I don't think so. I think they're a bit too cool for my liking of playing like a brutish, like, animal person kind of guy. But does that mean I would put... maybe I would put the Bugbear ahead of the Goliath, then? I guess now that I think about it, Hobgoblins are not too bad, but it really depends on the DM and how you play one, I guess. Like, maybe I would go a Hobgoblin before I play a Genasi. Maybe. And a Bugbear also before I play a Genasi. Yeah. Dragonborn is a D. Not a big fan of Dragonborn. I think they're kind of lame, but I will place them ahead of the Leonin and Arakocra. And I've used them mostly as like NPCs and stuff like that. I think they're a bit like just uninteresting, and I'm not a big fan of like dragon type stuff in D&D, which is in the name, you know, Dungeons and Dragons. But just never been a huge dragon guy. Never been into that. And I know they're technically not even dragons, but lizard people exist, and I would much rather go for that, you know? Kenku, as I've stated, Kenku, bird person, not really my kind of thing. I'll put that down here next to the Dragonborn. Kobold is a tiny... Yeah, I'll put that at maybe a B. Well, I don't know if I would play one, but I do. Yeah, I enjoy them as NPCs. I enjoy them as enemies and companions. I could see myself hanging out with Kobold. Lizard folk, yes. These are cool animal kind of guys. I'll put that ahead of the Kobold, and maybe ahead of the Satyr now that I think about it. Yeah, that feels right. Orc. Orc is quintessential to, like, fantasy now. I'll put the Orc. I feel like A or S is where I could put it. Because, I enjoy the Firbolg thing of, like, oh, a giant with a heart of gold. And I enjoy the same thing about the Orc. And especially added when it's like, oh, you're coming out of, like, a tribe where you would not be seen as the good kind of person. And I know that, like, statistically, the Orc is not all that good as a player race. Like, the Half-Orc is better, actually. But if we're talking, you know, wholly within the realm of, like, thinking about culture and world building and that kind of thing, then I would put the Orc as an S tier. Tabaxi, not huge into animal, people, races. And I wouldn't really play one, I don't think. You know, I said I'll play one before the Leonin, but even that, it's like, I wouldn't play one given the chance, you know? What would I put? Yeah, I'll put that behind the Genasi, I think, yeah. Triton, I have actually played a Triton. He was a character who was pretending to be an elf, masquerading as an agent for, like the invasion of the underwater world. And I had a lot of fun playing as him. He never got caught, even though his outfit was just like pointy ears and a bigger nose. But as a people, I'll put them at a B. Now, I don't know. I don't even know. Like, that was a fun character that I played. But I don't think I would ever play a Triton again, actually, now that I think about it. And I think even from a world building perspective, I'm not huge into, like, underwater people. And if they're going to be underwater people, they don't really need to look human, so I'll put that behind the Goliath. I think I would rather play anything else ahead here. Yuan-Ti, I don't really know a lot about the Yuan-Ti, but they're kind of creepy, and if I'm going to play a snake person, you know, I'll play a lizard. I'll play a lizard person. So we kind of, I don't know, lame. Feral Tiefling, no. Just play a Tiefling. Turtle are cool from an NPC perspective, but I don't know. Not something I would play. Changeling, I don't really know a whole lot about the Changelings. I assume they changed and that's it, you know. I feel like maybe I should make another row. So Changeling, I would maybe put that at a D, but I think I just don't know enough about them to comment about them. Dwarf, oh my god, this dog got a puppy recently. Dwarf is a, I'll put that at an A. I'll put that at an A. I enjoy the tiny people, and I wouldn't say I love dwarves or anything, but I think they often have like a very interesting like history and culture to them. Very interesting people and all that. And I enjoy when I have like a party member who's a dwarf who doesn't like play into the tropes and all that, or like when you have NPC dwarves who are more like interesting and, oh my god, engage with like the history and like cheese making or whatever weird interest they might have. Kalashtar, I would say I don't really know enough about these to really comment on them. And Orc of Eberron, I would say the same thing. And isn't a shifter basically just a changeling? What's the difference here? So yeah, I think these are all Eberron races, and I don't know. Warforged is, I think I enjoy the idea of like a robot, an atomical race kind of thing, but I don't think Warforged is like quite hitting the spot for me with all that, so I'll put that at a D. Like, head of Kenku, below Dragonborn. It's just not quite there for me, you know. And Gith, I think Gith are like a very interesting race lore-wise and all that, but they've never really been like something I've been hugely interested in. They've never really hit that thing of like, oh yeah, I'm really into the Gith. And they're kind of like, I don't know, kind of weirdly skinny orcs kind of looking. They're not like super alien looking from a D&D perspective. I would maybe enjoy them if they looked more alien, like almost sci-fi, I think. But I think, all that said, I'm not hugely into them. I'll maybe put them behind, maybe, yeah, behind Tabaxi is good. Centaur, no, I'm not into that. I'll maybe even put them behind, I don't know, Leon, and no, I can never see myself playing a centaur. That's the thing. I just hate centaurs. I've always hated them. Loxodon, no, that's dumb. That's just dumb. Minotaur, no. I guess I'm not into Greek mythology. I guess that's something. Simic hybrid, I don't really know what that is, and I don't know enough about Vidalcan. Elf, that's a tough one. I think elves are like one of the most loved and hated races in fantasy. And I think I quite enjoy the elves, although I've been in both positions where I hated them and where I loved them. I'll put them ahead of dwarves. Ooh, that's gonna spark some hate. But yeah, I enjoy the idea of elves, but I don't like how they often are in fantasy, where they're often like trying to be superior to people, or they're trying to be like, I don't know, just humans plus. I enjoy elves where they're a lot more carefree, a lot more human in how they engage with people, and they kind of have a very loose sense of what an elf even is. Like, even the elves are like, ah, who's an elf? I don't know. Whoever calls himself an elf is an elf. That's maybe something I could go into more. I could talk a lot about elves. It would take up a lot of time talking about here. But I would say, purely from the perspective of, like, I enjoy playing elves as people who are very, not humans plus, but a forest people who are very open and welcoming and sort of like loose and carefree. That's the kind of elves that I enjoy. I don't like the super serious elves or like super high and mighty or like super elitist. I enjoy the elves who are like forest people, carefree, maybe a bit clan-based around that. They can be a bit serious, but yeah, I guess I enjoy the wood elves is really it. I'm not a big fan of high elves. If we could separate the high elves, I would maybe place them lower at like a B tier, C tier, and wood elves might be an S tier, but as a balance, I would put them here at an A. Verdun, I don't really know enough about these. And Lokafa, I don't know anything about these, but I kind of like how they look just based on this portrait right here. So I'll put them right here. No, I put them ahead of Triton. This looks pretty cool. Grung, exact same thing, except they look a bit cuter, and for that they get to go ahead. No, but not ahead of Goliath. They get to go there. Yeah, so Dampier, half vampire, half human. No, not really. Just play a vampire or a human. I feel like I think this is a weird point with Hexblood where it's like, okay, so it's a human merged with like hex magic. Does that need to be a race? Shouldn't that be like something a part of your background kind of thing? Like, I don't know. I think purely from that perspective, I'm like, I don't know, I would rather play something that's just a human, you know, but it doesn't need to be that special. I'll move them ahead of maybe the centaur, or the tiefling. So Reborn is basically an undead, but not necessarily evil, I think. And I would actually say I don't know enough about them to put them on a real spot. But that's another thing of like, is that really a race? Does that need to be a race? That should be something different. An Orc of Exandria, not really sure what Exandria is. So don't know enough about. Gnome, here we go. Oh baby, Gnome is an S tier. Love gnomes, definitely love gnomes. I love the tiny gnome people who are forest people who are involved with magic. I enjoy gnomes that are like into the mechanical stuff. I enjoy all kinds of gnomes. Definitely my favorite fantasy race of all time, I would say. And it's really sad, I think, that gnomes don't get like enough, I don't know, attention in fantasy, or they even were removed at one point from D&D. which is sad because I think they're superior to the halflings. Gnomes have so much potential, and I think they're unseen for a large part of D&D, and that makes me really sad. I wish gnomes had more love. Half-elf is a thing of like, I don't enjoy it for the aspect of being half-elf, half-human, but I would maybe say I enjoy it for the sake of a human who has Fey lineage or Fey blood. I would play a half-elf in the sense of like a human who has some unknown Fey lineage, or maybe he doesn't know where his like origin and who his parents are. He is completely like guileless on where he came from, but he has some hint of like Fey lineage, and based on that, I think that could be a really interesting backstory, and not necessarily playing it as like, oh, his parents were elf and human, but like it's just unknown. Maybe he had like a fairy grandmother. I don't know how that would work. Halfling is, you know, people say, what's the difference between a halfling and a gnome? And, you know, halflings are basically like more folksy types. I would play Svat as an A tier. They're more into, you know, the partying, the sneaking, the thievery. Maybe not so much into magic, not staying in a forest, but more farmer-like. And I played halflings and had fun with them. Definitely enjoy a good halfling. But I'll always go gnome ahead of halfling. I'll play a halfling if there is no gnome available. Yeah, I don't think I have much else to say other than gnomes are just superior. Half-orc is a thing where if like, I enjoy it because of the statistics. I enjoy playing them as an orc, essentially, and even in D&D, a half-orc is basically considered an orc because no orc has like pure like orc blood. So I don't think they're that different from an orc, and I would place them ahead purely because of like the statistics based around them being better than an actual orc in D&D. But you know, they're basically the same thing. It doesn't really matter. You know, if I could put them on the same spot, that would be it. Human is also an S tier ahead of goblin, not ahead of gnome. I think humans are interesting. People consider them boring, but you know, that's the thing about race in D&D. It's not that important in the end. You know, it's all about the character in the end and what you do with that. What's not important is the race that you play as, and focus more on class, focus more on background, history, culture, all that. And there's so much you can do with a human. I enjoy humans for the sake of... I enjoy humans a lot in fantasy for the sake of them not being fantastical and being these ordinary people in a fantastical world. And I think that has so much potential. And so much more interesting in many ways than playing like, oh, I'm going to be the most unique race here and be like a Loxodon. Like, just... You can make something way more interesting as a human, I think. Purely based on that it's not special, rather than just being something unique and special, engaging with different stuff that's unique and special. It's sort of like you lose that sense of like the fantastical into that. So I feel like human is almost like what I end up playing the most. And I think that's for a good reason. I think there's more potential for like a lot of like expansion into what makes everything feel fantasy. It's not about involving yourself with the fantasy, but exploring it from a non-fantasy perspective. At least that's what I think is like super fun and interesting. But they're not as fun as the gnome still, so they get to be behind the gnome. You know, I say all that, but you know, the gnome is sort of like... It's not something you would consider... I don't think I would consider it superior to the human. The gnome is almost lesser in a way, you know? And that makes it more like, yeah, because you come from a weaker spot, you work yourself up to become powerful and all that. And that adds something to it. So gnome, human, classic S tier kind of stuff. Tiefling, I'm not really a big fan of tieflings. I understand there's a lot of love for them. But yeah, I'll put them at the top of C. Harengon... Don't really know enough about. I guess are rabbit people. I don't know anything about their statistics, but based on them being rabbit people, I'll just place them ahead of a turtle. Yeah. And fairy, I think fairy is like an interesting thing. I'll place them along with the elves and dwarves. I'm not sure where to put them exactly. I think somewhere in the A tier, because I think you could do a lot of interesting stuff with the fairy player and all that. But you're so handicapped also to the point of like, would you be able to like engage with anything in the game? I'm not sure. It's super interesting from a perspective of like what you can do in D&D and all that, and like, so I think there's so much potential for what you can do as a fairy, but you might be handicapped to the point where you are ruining the game for like your party members. And I don't know what would happen if you played like a party made up entirely of fairies. I don't know. I think that would be interesting, but I have no clue. I think that's something that could happen and just happen to be like super fun. Do I feel happy with this? I guess that's a thing of like, I enjoy playing races that are like either tiny or really big. At least when it comes to like playing something that's not human, I enjoy playing stuff that's like really tiny or really big. I think that's like a fun, I don't know, like way to enter into the world and be like, let's explore stuff, let's get into stuff, let's like see how these power dynamics work for me or against me, is I guess a way of putting it. If I were like 19 right now, I would have been like, oh man, elves #1. But I guess gnomes have replaced the elf for me, in that the elf is too perfect, and a gnome is basically, you can play them as a tiny elf and you'll have way more fun. And I think I would enjoy an elf if they were basically just like a halfling gnome elf combination. You know, a bit closer to like mythology, you know, like Nordic mythology. Modern fantasy elf, I think they have a lot of potential still. I think elf could, you know, actually be up here with we humans, if I think about it, now that I think about it. But it's purely based on like how you play them. And they can grow beards, which is a big problem. At least most of them in most fantasy can grow beards. I feel like if I'm gonna play as someone, then I would like to have a beard. So would I, you know, as a final touch, would I move the elves up a bit? I'll maybe put them here, but I think that feels about right. I think there's a lot of things you could do with elves that are like super interesting, because I am thinking, I'm trying to think about both like what these races are from the D&D perspective and how I would do world building with them, or how I'd play them, and that, you know, influences things a lot. So I think based on that, I think this is a good spot, yeah. I'm not sure if this would be like all that crazy or different compared to everyone else, and I think that's fine. It doesn't need to be, you know. But I would definitely like to hear what people think and where they would place things. And I think that's it. I love gnomes. I love tiny people. I love big people. I love average people. I'm living the dream.